You've worked with dice manufacturers in China. Can you tell us what that experience was like?
So if you're working with businesses in China, the best thing to do is approach it like it's this is going to sound weird, like you're a con artist, like you're planning a heist. So it's really a relationship with the company that you're working with. So you want to establish friendly relationships. You want to get to know the people, and you want them to get to know you, and know that if they ask for a favor, you do them a favor. If somebody has something negative to say about their company, you won't say anything negative about their company. You never like make them lose face in public. If they have any complaints or criticisms, you suggest ways to do things, or you say, I can help you do this avenue. Are you interested in this? It's always negotiation and teamwork, very much so. If you come at Chinese companies just like from, I would have to say, an American point of view of like, hey man, I've got this money and I want this done. They just look at you as a mark, a target, a profit source. They don't look at you as a business partner. That's a fundamental thing that people need to get through their heads in America and to a small extent Canada. That's not the way that Chinese people do business. And if you do figure out how it works, if you do establish these sort of social relationships, which is very easy these days using social media, but very difficult because of the communication blockout between the West and the East that exists, and New Zealand's sort of stuck in the middle trying to communicate with both at the same time. So New Zealanders are actually in a very good position to establish these relationships with Chinese companies. So I'm quite familiar with Shenzhen and all the places where you get your 3D printers and lithium batteries and all that sort of stuff is the place where I know and have contacts with companies, mainly dice manufacturing companies, but word spreads if they have a good contact that will help them out with like translating their packaging and information on their packaging and brochures into English, and will do it for free just as a favor. Then when you have an idea for a product, they're much more open and suggestible to helping you out because you help them out, sort of thing. And they will never criticize you in public if you're a partner of theirs. They will do nothing but back you up because that's the way they operate. It's a two-way street. So yeah, that's the best advice I can pretty much give, is just go into it like you're establishing a friendship and a relationship, like you're getting to know your next door neighbor, and you don't talk shit about your next door neighbor, and you don't talk shit about the companies in China that you're working with. It's pretty simple, really. And as through that relationship, it started off with helping them out with dice designs and stuff and marketing their dice for them. But I said, like, I can't, flood my channel with like information about dice all the time because I don't promote products like this. And they're like, okay, well, can you help us out with this? And I was like, sure. And so, yeah, it just established that when they had some new packaging or something like that, they would ask me to double check things or double check a web page listing on Amazon and make sure that the English was okay. And I was only too happy to do so because it only took me like 5-15 minutes worth of work to do that. It was super easy. And it meant so much to them just to have that person who would help them out that way, because this is something that they never get to experience. They never get a hand in the market itself. They're always just shooting in the dark sort of thing. So that's why there's so many derivative products and copied products and stuff, because they don't know the market and what new products will sell or what the trends are and things like that. So having somebody in the industry who's actually advising them is incredibly valuable to them. So they will go out of their way to send you gift parcels of snacks from China or, send you beautiful photos and things like that. And if you had a good enough relationship with a large enough company, they would fly you, all expenses paid, to a very nice hotel and give you an excellent meal to meet the entire company. And they'd bring the family and kids, and you would get to know the community, which is the way they operate their businesses. So it's a very different sort of working environment. And you just need to understand that it's a different culture that you're dealing with, and they are just people like you and me. So yeah, I know them by name and I know what they get up to. I know, whether they've had COVID or not, and what the situation's like on the ground for them in China during that time. And yeah, we ran a Kickstarter together, and they were shipping out stuff from their houses and hiring people in the local community to do quality checking. So it's not some big faceless company that I was working for. It was people and their families, and I still are in contact with them all the time. They're friends of mine. So yeah. And as of recently, the experience of them from their point of view when Wizards of the Coast came after them for the use of the word Mind Flayer on some of their packaging, even though Wizards of the Coast has released Mind Flayer into the Creative Commons from like page 97 of the systems reference document, and it was a really spurious. Like, they were obviously just using the law to suppress them. And it was quite effective because they needed to spend $30,000 just to hire a trademark lawyer to defend their trademark. And if they didn't prove that they were willing to defend it, then it would automatically sort of just default over to being released, and Wizards of the Coast could buy it up and protect their Baldur's Gate game, I guess. But even though, like, Disney is using Mind Flayer in their show, it's just ridiculous. So they had to, like, they came to me because they had this big wall of lawyers sending them letters, very, very nasty letters, out of the blue, and they were freaking out. And in the end, they just decided to drop the Mind Flayers and all the products associated with it, rather than deal with that, and distance themselves from Dungeons and Dragons completely. Because I said, look, Dungeons and Dragons at the moment is kind of a dead horse. You don't want to be backing that one. Go with something else and just go generic role-playing games, and don't concentrate so much on Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think it's healthy for the community anyway. And they're like, okay, because they take my advice. Yeah, so yeah, that's working in China. And I've had other relationships with other Chinese companies that were more sort of mercenary, like getting dice designed and made by them. And sometimes you just like, I need some dice sets made that I've always wanted, and you approach them with a design and they give it a go. They do a limited run, sell them on Amazon, and if you're lucky, they'll send you a royalty check, and it's usually because they've sold a few and they're looking to get another design out of you for very cheap. But in actual fact, I'm just using them to get the dice that I want, and they're just using me to get new dice designs that will possibly sell or not. It's not much of an investment on their part. One thing, though, that I've noticed that the Chinese companies are very loath to do is, as I mentioned, do anything that's not been done before. So anything completely innovative and brand new to the market with a guaranteed potential to explode into a huge new product. Say, like if you design the next Magic the Gathering card game, they won't touch it because it's an unknown quantity and they're not willing to risk money on something they don't understand. Which I can certainly understand why they do that. But it is very frustrating if you have a fantastic idea and the company that you've been working with are just like, no, we're not willing to invest any money in that. We'll help you if you invest money, but we can't do it. So yeah. And to a certain extent, my making the silicone battle mats was kind of like that as well. They were just like, well, is there anything else on the market like it? And I was like, yes, there's this. It's like, well, why aren't they dominating the market? And I was just like, well, because it's so difficult to manufacture this stuff. And I need your help. And they did help a lot. So yeah, it was very beneficial.